What's going on, guys? Ben here with Strong Insurance. Today we are going to discuss developing relationships with brokers and shippers and why it's so important, and a few key things that we can do to continue to develop those relationships. Put your business at the forefront of their mind when they've got loads that need to go. Hopefully you'll be the first phone number they call. Obviously, this does two things. One, it allows you to find the best rate per mile out there and build that relationship and hopefully continuously haul for that shipper or broker. And then it also allows you to find geographical areas that you do well in and work with those shippers and brokers when you're loaded out to those certain areas. So there's a ton of benefits to having good relationships with your shippers and brokers. So let's start going through, like I say, 5 or 6 things that you can do to solidify these relationships. So the first thing we need to do is understand what a shipper is and what a broker is. I know most of you know this, but maybe someone new getting into the industry doesn't quite understand the differences. So your shippers are the individuals or companies that need their product moved from point A to point B through these trucking companies. If you can build direct relationships with shippers, more power to you. It's the best way to go. You're going to get the best rate per mile that way. You're gonna really start to be profitable when you start to build those direct connections and direct relationships. Now your brokers are intermediaries between your shippers and the truck drivers. So anytime a load needs moved and the shipper doesn't know how to contact someone directly, they're going to use a broker. That broker is going to go out and try to find an empty truck to get that load moved. So they're going to take a little piece of the pie along the way. Everyone knows that, and sometimes it's not so little anymore. So that's going to be your primary differences between your shippers and your brokers. So what can we do to maybe cut out a broker or get directly to a shipper, or even continue to build that relationship with the broker themselves? Deliver consistent and reliable services. That is probably the most important thing. Timely deliveries, clear communication, making sure that their cargo is protected, both from an insurance standpoint and that you just drive like you're not a chicken with your head cut off. Keep it between the mustard and the mayo. Don't go nuts. Don't be going 80 miles down the road. There's things that you can do to ensure that you are consistent and reliable. Like I say, showing up on time is probably one of the biggest things. Late shipments, that hurts your reputation. Obviously, there's things that happen that are outside of your control. Some of those are inside of your control and preventable. If it's preventable, let's prevent them. Vehicle maintenance is one of the biggest things that causes delays in delivery. So making sure you got that vehicle maintenance program that we've talked about in 10 other videos before this is extremely, extremely important. So building trust through transparency, that's going to be our second step here. Honest pricing, making sure that you're not gouging these guys. Obviously, you've got to make money. They have to be aware of that. Don't take loads that aren't going to pay what need to be paid. It hurts the industry as a whole. It drives the price down for everybody. If there's a lane that's running $2,000 for this load, try not to come in and just throw $1,200 on it because you're still going to make a little tiny bit of money. That lane costs $2,000 for a reason. Maybe it's going over mountain passes. Maybe there's lots of tolls involved. There's a reason it's a $2,000 lane. Obviously, there's instances, once again, where maybe you can come in at lower pricing and still not be undercutting the market like crazy. But don't do the flip side either and turn around and say, this is a client that you work with regularly. It's normally a $2,000 lane. No one else is available, so you're going to stick them with a $4,000 bill to get it done. That's probably not the best way to build a relationship long term. Sure, you might make some money right there, but you're probably not getting called back next time they need that load moved. So honest pricing, accurate documentation, ensure all documents, bills of lading, delivery receipts, everything's accurate and submitted on time. And then openness. If problems do arise and you do have a delay or an equipment issue or things like that, let them know. Don't leave them in the dark and wait until you're obviously 2 hours late for the shipment and then call and say, hey, I'm going to be late. Let them know as soon as you're going to be late. It sucks to have to make that phone call, but in the long run, being upfront and open about the fact that you're going to be late is going to pay off better than biting your tongue to the last minute and then spilling that bad news on them. So now, kind of along those lines of letting these people know where you're at and what's going on, obviously load tracking has become a huge thing. There's GPS telematics. A lot of these brokers and shippers are really, really heavy on that right now. You kind of have to get on board with it. A lot of times there's not a lot you can do about it. So if you're comfortable GPS tracking, let them have it. If you're not, understandable, try not to work with that broker or shipper that's going to require that. Same thing with documentation. Anymore there's a ton of streamlining you can do with the paperwork using electronic bills of lading and delivery receipts and things like that, which is paramount nowadays. I think everyone's pretty well doing it that way, anyways. So, and then customer portals. Especially if you're a large fleet and you have the software to offer a customer portal where, and you're working with a broker or shipper that you work with all the time, build them a customer portal and give them access to that so they can check the status of their freight right there, on a list. If you've got 10 trucks out hauling for the same broker or shipper, they can go look at those 10 trucks and say, okay, here's this load's running behind, this load's ahead of schedule, everything's looking really good. So efficient communication and tools that you can implement, especially for your fleets. Like I say, if you're 20, 30, 40, 50 trucks or bigger, having some sort of customer portal can be a major, major game changer. And additionally, it can be a huge time saver for you, right? Now you're not having to give these manual updates constantly as to where a load is or why a load's running behind. They can go into a customer portal, they can see a load's behind, and maybe below it, your driver has put notes already. Hey, we blew a tire on I-80. We're running a little bit behind. Setback estimated time, hour and a half. Now their drop-off point knows, hey, we got an hour and a half delay. Do you want them to come tomorrow? They can put notes back in there to the driver. There's a ton of really, really neat tools out there. So take advantage of them if you have the money to do it. I understand some of our 1 through 4, 5 truck operations maybe aren't there yet, but as you grow, these are things that you should definitely look at implementing. So, developing your competitive price strategy is also really important. Having flexible terms if you're able to. I know anymore most people are using some sort of factoring. So, but working with these guys if they need it from time to time isn't the worst thing in the world. Don't let these guys put you out of business though. Don't put something out on a 30-day bill that you didn't factor for some reason, for this reason or that reason, and let it slide 60, 70, 80, 90 days. I mean, you've got to cross your T's and dot your I's. You have a family to feed. You've got a truck to maintain. You have the next load to run. You can't be looking back at these guys begging for your money. So, but definitely having a little bit of flexibility, especially if it's someone you've worked with time and time and time again, and they're always paying. Maybe you put a 30-day out there and there's a weekend on the 30th day or a bank holiday, and they're not going to pay till Tuesday when they should have paid Friday. Maybe be a little bit flexible there. So those are things that can really help build that relationship. Showing a little bit of empathy for a situation, or maybe their bank got hacked, or there's a ton of different things there. Now, probably the most important thing that you can do to get this all started and working directly with shippers and brokers that are preferred brokers is network and build connections. Talk to other industry peers, talk to broker peers, talk to shipper peers, go to industry events, any sort of online forums or webinars that you can put yourself into. If you're in a bigger city, go into like the Chamber of Commerce and that sounds ridiculous, but go into the Chamber of Commerce and listening to some of these business owners, especially if they're manufacturers or warehouse owners. There's BNI, there's a bunch of different ways that you can get yourself in front of people who potentially need shipping. Now, I know that that's really hard, especially if you're OTR. When do you have time to go to a local Chamber of Commerce meeting? Like I say, that really only holds a lot of weight if you're in Chicago, Atlanta, New York, some of these bigger, Miami, some of these bigger cities where you might run into someone who genuinely needs a shipment fulfilled on a regular basis and things like that. But engaging in the industry, don't be a hermit and just run in your truck and kind of be by yourself unless you've already established those relationships. The only way you're going to go out and get those is put yourself in front of these people as much as you can, show them the good work that you do. And you should start to, the phone will start to ring. You'll start to see some success in building those networks and connections. So, and then kind of back to, the basics is customer service, responsive communication, problem resolution, and follow-ups, letting these people know shipments are completed. All of that stuff really just plays a major factor in solidifying yourself in the eyes of these shippers and brokers as someone they want to work with. I know it's not always easy. Some of these brokers, I swear to God, it's the craziest thing. Some of them are just absolute jerks. Some of the shippers are the same way, but We see it a lot in the broker space. I don't want to talk poorly on brokers. We do insure some brokers. We do some really good vetting on the brokers we insure, and we make sure that they're solid people to work with. But some of these brokers are just really, really difficult to work with. Some of these shippers can be really, really difficult to work with. But being responsive, communicative, and having problem resolution, that you can take care of these people and get things resolved when there is an issue, is going to be paramount. And then long-term contracts. This is huge. If you can seek any sort of long-term contract or preferred carrier status with a shipper or broker, it's game over. That's the best thing you can do. Offer value-add services to get your foot in the door. Show consistency, and then negotiate terms that work for you. Like I say, don't go out here seeking a long-term contract or being on a preferred list, and then price gouge them because you're on this preferred list or you have a long-term contract. Negotiate terms that work for you, that work for them. Offer any sort of additional services, expedited shipping, specialized cargo handling, especially specialized cargo handling. I'm a huge proponent of finding a vertical that you do well in, or a niche that you do well in, whether that's auto hauling, livestock hauling, pigs, sheep, hay. I mean, it doesn't matter. If you can find something that you can just do really, really good at, rinse and repeat that. Go get a second truck, do the same thing, and a third truck, and do the same thing, and a 50th truck, and do the same thing. Or within your fleet of 200, have 20 trucks who do one thing, 30 trucks that do another thing. That will allow you to also, keep those trucks specialized around the country and able to handle the needs of whoever you have a long-term contract or your preferred carrier status with. So those are some major things that you can do to build your reputation with these shippers and brokers, develop those relationships, and become what I would quote unquote household name for those guys, especially as you grow up into a fleet 20, 30, 40, 50 trucks. So if you want to continue to learn more about the insurance industry or the trucking industry as a whole, feel free to give us a like, follow on any of our social media linked down below the video. And as always, keep it rubber side down.